Hi everyone, today I wanted to share something deeply personal. It's our first pregnancy loss, which was a chemical pregnancy. This happened back in January 2023, and that was the first time we ever tried to conceive. I remember I was just so excited to finally try because sorry if I'm going to get emotional. I thought I won't because it's obviously a long time ago, but I have never talked about it properly with anyone. But I thought that I would share because when I was trying to search YouTube and find someone with similar story, I actually couldn't find anyone. So there is quite a lot to unpack, but in this video I wanted to focus on the very first loss. So if I back up a little bit, I've woke up like on April 22, 1 month before my 30th birthday, and I was like, oh my god, I want a baby. And we did not want to have a child, and we were happy like that. And you know, I was always open that it can change, but always open to the fact that it can change. But with my husband, we had conversation every year. We had even set it up in our calendar that we will talk about, do we feel like we want a child for the next year? If we said no, we would not talk about it again until that reminder popped up the next year. We actually confirmed, I think it was February, that we did not want a child, and then in April, so 2 months later, I woke up and everything has changed. I can't explain why. Like, maybe it was biological clock, like ticking, approaching 30, but in that moment, every single reason we ever listed, like for reasons not to have a child, just did not matter to me, like at all. Like I was like, that's okay, we will make it work. Like it just did not hold any weight. Like even if I would name you all the reasons, they are still, I'm sorry, they are still valid, and in that moment though, they would just not matter. So I told my husband, and to see like how he feels about it and so on, and I said, because I love research and I love to be prepared and all of that, I said I will do some more like research, so I'm prepared, and like see if I really want to do it. I back then ordered some baby clothes, just a couple of pieces, just to see how I feel about it, and I absolutely loved it. To this day I have it saved. It's actually currently wrapped in a Christmas paper because we try to put it under the Christmas tree every year as well. And I started to listen to some podcasts, like midwife podcasts, reading some books and so on, and I was like, okay, I definitely want a baby. Then in May I turned 30, and I was like, okay, so based on my research, the best is to prepare your body for at least 3 months, but best is 6 months prior trying to conceive. So I've decided that we should do the 6 months, and I've prepared everything. Like I've read what to expect before you are expecting. I read it starts with the egg, and I ordered some prenatal vitamins for myself and for my husband, CoQ10, and some other things. We cleaned up our diet even more. I went to doctor for preconception blood check, and everything was perfect, everything was fine. And then also, because I wanted to be really on top of things, I've decided to send my husband for a sperm test before we would even try, because I didn't want to be trying and then find out that something's wrong in that area. So we paid for that, and he had his sperm tested, which was absolutely great. In November, it was the first time that the 3-gene testing was covered by Medicare, which tests like for these 3 genetics conditions, cystic fibrosis. So I've done that as well, all was negative. And then we were ready to start trying in January 23. I think it was like the cycle December, January. I was really hopeful that this is going to happen for us really quickly. I think that, you know, most people feel this way, that it's just going to happen. Most of my friends actually around me literally got pregnant on a first try, so it wasn't like unheard of. So the first month we tried, we were still traveling at that point. We were living in a bus and we were traveling around Australia full time for the past 2 years. But we were about to wrap up and find a permanent home in February, March. So in that moment, we were still in Tasmania, traveling, enjoying our lives, swimming. It was summer, we're in Australia, so it was summer and it was beautiful. So we tried, and then there was my first 2-week wait. I would swear that I felt like twinges and like pullings like in my uterus, like I never felt it before. And I remember like feeling these, and even a couple of times I felt like a shooting pain, like a stabbing. In that moment, like it stops you in your tracks, like, oh, like what was that? And it would just be like instant and gone. And I was like, oh, definitely something's happening. I was like really sure about it. And I kept taking tests and they were all negative. So that was a little bit confusing to me. I still could not believe it. And then it was 14 DPO, so 14 days past ovulation, which is my expected date of period. I took one last pregnancy test and it was still negative, so I was like really disappointed. And then my period started, and TMI, but it was heavy and it had like lots of clots and it was not nice. I remember that. And I went through the period, and I remember I told my husband, I don't know what the chemical pregnancy is, but I feel like I had one, because I would swear something was happening. I would swear like something was trying to implant, but my tests were negative, so maybe that's what happened. But I'm telling you, I felt it. I'm not crazy. I still remember I was telling him this. So as you know, like the first day of your period is the first day of your new cycle. So we started new cycle. On cycle day 9, I had some spotting, and I was like, that's really weird because I don't spot through my cycle, especially not like at the beginning like this. So in that moment, in the middle of the day, I didn't hold the urine for long at all. I took my ovulation strip, just those like easy at home, Amazon cheapies, and immediately as it like touched, it was blazing positive. Like the test line was there first and then the control line. And I was like, wow, it's only cycle day like 9. Like I don't usually ovulate. Well, I don't usually have my peak until cycle day 14, 15. And that's really early, that's weird. And like, I don't know, I just had that feeling, just take a pregnancy test as well. I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. Like it was not dark, but like it was like the cheapy paper test, but it was positive, and it actually showed up again before the control line. It was there straight away. But in the moment, like I was already like not, wow, I'm great. Like I was not celebrating or anything. I was immediately, my mind immediately went, okay, something's wrong. Because I just finished my period, which was really heavy. So I know that there is definitely not a chance that the baby would still be in there. So my mind in that moment more went to, what is ectopic pregnancy? Can I have that? Like, how would it show in blood and so on? I actually even went to an emergency because it was the first time. I had no idea what's going on. But they sent me home and they just said it was a chemical pregnancy. They didn't even want to do a blood test or anything. If you can see, that was like that line, the first line like I saw on these tests. But I might pop here other tests, like I took the first response, clear blue and so on, which would be more visible. Also, this is really old, it's obviously a couple of years, but like you can see, like this is what I started actually. So I was taking the OPKs before we were trying. So it even says cycle 1 and it says not trying. I was just taking this so I would know when I'm ovulating, and then this was the next month and next month, and then this is the first month we tried. And see, these are the positive ones here. Yeah, so before we actually started to try, I started like this little book that on one side I had the tests, and on the other side, you can see like full of hope. A letter to the baby. Letter to the baby. Here were some important dates. When I had a preconception blood test on the 22nd of May 2023. You know what? It must have been done January 24. I always mix these up. I'm sorry. I will fix it up because I'm just looking at these important dates and they are all 2023, which means it was the cycle December 23 to 24. The date of the cycle was 18 of December 23, which means it was January 24. I'm so sorry about that. I might keep it handy in case I need it for some more information. Yes, so they told me it is a chemical pregnancy. I then didn't I didn't know what to do, so like I kept testing every day. The test line I think went darker a little bit. I continued spotting, and then the test line started to get lighter and lighter, and it went to fully negative by cycle day 15. So it took 6 days from the day when I found out for it to go to negative. And then I remember that I did not ovulate because I would normally have my peak around cycle day 15, but I still had some HCG in my blood, so my body did not know that it should ovulate. So after that HCG cleared, I then ovulated on the cycle day 35. I remember I put it here. And then 2 weeks later, after that ovulation, I got my period. So my cycle was off by quite a bit. So that was my first chemical pregnancy. And basically, what's so different about it is that I definitely felt my symptoms. I had negative tests all through my 2-week wait. I got my period, and then I did not get my positive pregnancy test until the cycle day 9, which was 4 days after my period ended. Maybe I would test positive earlier than that, but I was obviously not testing because I did not even think it's possible. So unfortunately, little did I know that that's just the first experience and first hurdle we are going to have. After this loss, something has happened in my body. Something has changed because I started to gain weight in a way that you just feel like expanding and puffy. Like my face started to get round. I was bloated constantly. I looked like 8 months pregnant. It was really uncomfortable. I started to feel tired. I did not fit in my clothes, but nothing has changed. Like my diet was the same. My exercise levels were the same, but it was just happening. But in that moment, I just did not connect these two together. It clicked in my mind later on, which we will get to, but it was happening little by little by little. I said we lived in a bus, and then we finished in February 24. Now I know the dates. I finished in February 24, and we came down to South Australia and started to look for a home, and we found one where we're renting right now. And then in May, I might open this again to not mess up the dates. It was the cycle starting 29 of April 2024. I found my peak on cycle day 13, so I was ovulating cycle day 14 or 15. And again, I have been taking pregnancy tests during my 2-week wait, and all came back negative. I'll just show you here. All negative. Testing from 9 DPO to 14 DPO, nothing. And then I started new cycle. So just so you know, so the 14 DPO was on the 26th of May. I started my period, and I think it was my period day 2, 3 or 4, something like that. I was eating gnocchi, and I remember it was afternoon, we were having lunch, I was eating the gnocchi, and it was making me feel nauseous. And I was like, that's weird. And my husband then took the dog, Archie, our dog, for a walk, and I quickly went and took a pregnancy test because of what happened last time. I just wanted to confirm that it's negative. I was on my period, it was in the afternoon, so no hold. I took the test on 18 DPO basically, on the 30th of May. So last time I tested was 26th of May. On 14 DPO it was negative, and then on 30th of May, cycle day 32 or 18 DPO. Here at the top. As you can see, so I took the test and it came a light positive. Hi, baby. this is the puppy I was just talking about. And Archie's lying on the floor. This is Oakley. Hey Oakley. Hopefully he will let me talk. So it was 18 DPO, my test was positive. And in that moment I was like, not again. Like, I was not really hopeful because I was having my period again, and obviously that's how it ended last time. But this time I decided to go to GP and ask to the GP and ask for HCG test and progesterone test. I wanted to see if my progesterone is high or not, like if that's maybe the issue. So she took the blood the next day and the HCG was 11, so it was very low, but obviously I just got the positive test, so it would be very much at the beginning. So the HCG was 11, but the issue was that the progesterone was like nearly non-existent. I think it was like around 1, which is actually a normal number in your follicular phase. So obviously I was just having my period, so that's a normal number in that time of the cycle where I was, but not for pregnancy. She basically told me that she doesn't think it's going to last, but we then repeated the blood work in 2 days and it went to 39. So it went from 11 to 39, so it more than tripled actually. So I was like, oh, like maybe it's happening. She did not want to prescribe me progesterone, but I knew my progesterone is low. So in that moment I started to panic and I was trying to find a midwife, someone who would help me, someone who would prescribe me the progesterone. Then I had 39 and then 2 days later it was 60. So that time it did not double, it was less than that. The day after was 77. I finally got prescribed progesterone. I put the Vesargi in the evening, and then the next day I think was when my test for the first time went lower. So you can see, I don't know if I can show you now, but I can actually add the photo because it will be like more visible. You can see that the tests are getting darker. Then where my finger is will be the darkest. And then it started to go the other way. It's then getting lighter and lighter. The peak was DPO 26, so it was positive for 8 days and then it started to get lower and lower. I actually stopped writing dates in here, but the last date I have here is 11th of June. It was DPO 30, cycle day 44, and I still had some line there. Then my line got darker again, and then it disappeared. So it took a while for this to go back to negative. I will insert the photo like here, I think, so you can have a look at it. After this loss, that's when it peaked. I gained so much weight, I'm really short, and I gained, I think, about 15 kilos. Like, I felt awful, I felt huge, nothing fitted me, I could not fit in any of my clothes. But like, I was feeling big everywhere, like my face, I was feeling like big even on my chest. I can't describe it, my chest looked fat too, like it was everywhere. And I was so tired that I would walk the dog and I would come home and I had to lie down. I could not work, I would relax, rest, cook, and then that would take the energy out of me and I would have to lie again. And I did not know what's going on. But after this second loss that we had, I was able to get into a fertility clinic which accepted us because sometimes they want like to have more losses, or that you're trying at least a year. At that point we were trying just 5 months, but because of how the losses happened, that both of the times I found out during and after my period, it was just all like odd. So they decided to accept us. They took so many blood tests from me, especially some from my husband, but mostly me. Like, the report with everything is like 7 pages long, and everything but one thing, everything was really good. Like, my egg reserve was above my age group, no, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the markers were good. But I've tested positive for ANA, which is anti-nuclear antibody, I think, something like that. It is a marker that can be positive with people who have some autoimmune issues. So it was slightly positive is what it was 1 to 80 speckled pattern. ENA was positive as well, and under the ENA, my anti-RO/SSA antibody was positive. Everything else was negative. So in that moment, in the fertility clinic, they handed me this study which said the correlation between anti-RO/SSA positive antibody and adverse pregnancy effects. Some of them were implantation issues, early miscarriages, and then if the pregnancy will progress, you need to be monitored, especially between, I believe, between week 15 and 21, because those antibodies can cross via the placenta and they can cause congenital heart block for the baby. So you need to be monitored weekly, because if it would start happening, they need to start you on some special medication where they could potentially stop the progression of the heart block. The baby can even die. So that was really tough pill to swallow, because I've been always healthy, I had no issues, I had no symptoms prior to us trying to get pregnant of anything. And so she told me basically that there is nothing much they can do for us, because we are obviously getting pregnant, but something's happening during the implantation period, which might be the SSA antibody. And she said I'm not sick enough for a rheumatologist to see me because I have no symptoms. And they sent us home like this. I had absolutely no information. I had no idea what's going on, and I had no idea what to do. I just knew that, like, I've read so much about that antibody, and it was hard because a lot of it was more like the threat to the baby rather than myself. But it also meant that I could potentially develop an autoimmune disorder like lupus or Sjogren's syndrome. I did not have it, and I do not have it right now. Like, my antibodies for those is negative, but it's just the SSA antibody and the speckled pattern is often found in people who eventually have lupus or Sjogren. No one was helping me. I was getting worse and worse and worse. We kept trying, I think we kept trying, and I was getting worse and worse. And then I finally started to read about autoimmune disorders, and I had a book, and the first chapter said, like, check your gut, like check your microbiome, it's all connected to your gut, and inflammation. And I learned about inflammation. I never heard about inflammation before, and this was really my answer, because more I was reading about it, I was sure I am inflamed, like I have chronic inflammation, because I gained so much weight. It was impossible for me to lose any weight. I was doing reformer Pilates 3 times a week, daily walks, other exercises. I cut off even more foods, like I was even more on top of what I'm eating. I was already eating healthy. And nothing. I was just gaining day by day by day, and I was so tired, which is exactly what inflammation is. So I decided to go to my GP, and I asked her for the CRP test, which is the inflammation, and I asked for if she can recommend me for the gut microbiome, and she said no, and she laughed at me, and she said it has nothing to do with anything. So then, long story short, I got my results for the inflammation. The doctor just called me, and he called me earlier than expected by a few hours. So I did not have the table in front of me. I found out the table, like what the numbers mean. Like, you have no inflammation, you have chronic inflammation, and then you have acute inflammation. Acute inflammation is fine. That's like when your body is actively trying to like heal something. The chronic inflammation is the problem. He told me the number. I can't remember now, but it was around 8. What does it mean? Is it good? And he said, could be better, but all good. Test it again in 3 months. And he hanged up on me. Then I found a table, and I found out it's in the chronic numbers. It's the chronic inflammation. The number should be below 1. So like mine was, I think, like below 2.26 or something like that. Mine one was so much higher. And I started to cry because I was like, no one is helping me. The fertility clinic doesn't want me. They said rheumatologists won't see me because I'm not sick enough. My GP just told me my number is good enough when it wasn't, and come again and check it in 3 months when I was feeling like this. I could not work, I could not do anything, I felt so tired all the time. And they said, come again in 3 months, like, as it was just awful. And I cried, and then I found about functional medicine, but it's expensive because you have to pay for it yourself. So I looked at the like rough cost, and they said, like, you know, it can be about $10,000 a year or something. I talked about it with my husband, and we decided that I will talk to a functional medicine doctor because no one was helping me in that moment. So I told her everything. We done the gut microbiome test, we done the Dutch test for the hormones, and some other bloods, and she found out that my microbiome was in absolute horrific state, which was shocking because I eat lots of like fiber and plant foods and so on. But I did take some antibiotics when we were traveling, and I never took any probiotics, which might be the issue. I think I will leave this for the next video because there's so much to unpack with the functional medicine. But I'll just say that I then done the functional medicine, then I found another doctor online from America who does a special diet for autoimmune, which I then started, and that helped me to get rid of my inflammation. My weight came right off, my energy levels restored, and so on. But my fertility story is long, and I think in this particular video I just wanted to talk about my first and second chemical pregnancy, because I kind of grouped them together because both of these were after my period or during my period when I found out I'm pregnant. So I just wanted to put it out there in case there is someone in a similar situation and is wondering what's going on, because I couldn't find anyone really. I have been planning to do these videos for so long, for years, and I even recorded them a couple of times, so I don't even know if you will see this video. But yeah, I'm sorry, I sometimes like lose the chain of thought and so on. But these two losses were January and May 2024. We are now in July 2026. I had 4 more losses, so 6 in total. I'll probably just end the video here. I just wanted to share my story in case someone else is in a similar boat. I just know that I couldn't find anyone else who found out after the period. Unfortunately, it was not a positive story. Both of them ended in chemical pregnancies. I will then share a separate video about my following losses and following journey, how I healed the inflammation, and what did I do about the antibody, and what I learned. I think that will be a whole video on its own. And then my next loss, and then some other topics, and my next loss, and my next loss. And finally then I will get to probably a video where we are at now, which is still not pregnant. It's still with no baby beside my fur babies. So yeah, it's definitely not the journey that we expected, and I was 100% sure it will happen for us because we were so prepared. But yeah, sometimes life has different plans. Well, thank you for watching. I'm sorry if this video was a little bit all over the place, but it's the first time ever for me to do a YouTube video, and English is not my first language either, and it's the first time I'm really talking about this.